Hey guys, Ivan here. Today I'm going to show you the different types of wiring you're going to want to use in your house for networking, home automation, home security, speakers, what have you. I'm going to show you Cat 5e versus 6 and what that actually looks like. I'm going to show you the traditional home automation and security wiring. You're going to see 18 gauge versus 22 gauge. You're going to see shielded versus not shielded, solid versus stranded. These are big differences here. You're going to see speaker wiring. I know you've seen this a million times before, but I'm going to show you good wire versus cheap wire and how I regret getting some of this cheap wire. Let's take a closer look. Starting with the network wiring, blue is Cat 6, gray is Cat 5e. The thickness of the wire is almost identical. Cat 6 will be 23 gauge typically. Cat 5e will typically be 24 gauge. That's not a big deal. You'll see here that a lot of Cat 6 wiring will come with this plastic separator to keep the wire separate. That is, actually there's argument about whether that's even effective or not. The big difference is really going to be, see how tightly these things are twisted. The Cat 6, these twists are really tight, whereas the 5e is not nearly as tight. There are going to be termination requirements at your RJ45 at your Ethernet jack on the wall, but my opinion is as long as you're running the wire, if you can afford the extra expensive Cat 6, just run to Cat 6, keep life simple, so that way for the whole length of your run you're going to have Cat 6 wiring, and then just worry about the termination. Now let's go on to the home automation and security wiring. So the first question to ask yourself is, do I want 4 conductor wire where there's 4 wires in one jacket, or 2 conductor wire where there's just 2 wires in the one jacket? Some devices like door and window sensors only need 2 wires because they don't need power. It's just a simple magnet. Whereas things like a motion sensor, you're going to need 4 wires, 2 for signal and then 2 for power. Well, my opinion is, if you can afford the extra expensive 4 conductor, trust me, run the 4 conductor, because can you imagine you run a 2 conductor to a given location and then maybe you're going to want to have another sensor nearby and you have nothing extra, right? If you run a 4 conductor, just don't use 2 of those wires and you're good to go. The thickness difference is it's almost identical there, right? And these are both shielded wires. So my opinion is, if you have to choose between 2 conductor and 4 conductor, always run the 4 conductor and just don't use 2 of them. Next up is the question of shielding. Do you get shielded wire or unshielded? Shielded means, you'll see here, there's an aluminum shield or a metal shield around the cable, and then the unshielded has nothing. It does introduce a decent amount of thickness difference here. My suggestion would be, take a look at whatever the equipment is that you're going to be running and go by what that says. If you're not sure what to do, run shielded. If you're P-wiring, run the shielded. And again, that'll be more expensive. Now the next question to ask yourself is solid versus stranded. What you'll see here is the stranded wire is literally just that. It's a bunch of different strands. These are both the same gauge, whereas the solid wire is a single wire itself. The difference is that one is easier to work with. You'll see the stranded snaps back into place, whereas the solid kind of stays. So the stranded obviously is going to be more flexible, but the problem is this. If you have a typical motion detector, for example, and this thing is going to require power, right? And so you got to put it into these typically pretty small ports here, right? Putting in a stranded wire, it's not impossible, but it was just a little bit tougher to make sure all the strands go in and you don't have anything slipping out here that could accidentally short out with another wire, whereas the solid can pop right in and you know you're going to make a great connection. So that's the reason why I always like working with solid wire, although 18 gauge solid wire with a shield, that does get pretty tough to move around, but hopefully you're pre-wiring your house, or once you put the wiring in, put it into channels, you're not going to have to mess with it a lot. Now let me go to the smoke detector wiring that I use. And on my heat detectors I have fire retardant wire, which is red jacket wire. I'm pretty sure you can get other colors as well, but I got red jacket because that way I know I see red jacket wire in the walls or ceilings that is running to one of the heats, whereas the gray is running to something else. And obviously I got solid wire for that, so I know I can make a great connection. Last but not least is speaker wiring. I love my Sonos, but I love my in-ceiling speakers a little bit more, better quality, and there's no physical footprint. Starting from the cheapest, I got this from Home Depot, and my God, do I regret it. I was just jammed up. This thing is, you'll see there's no actual jacket separating these wires. It's just a single bonded thing with the plastic separating it down the middle. Ugh, it's impossible to work with. This thing at least has a jacket around the 2 wires here, so that way it makes these things a little bit easier to play with. But really, this is my favorite wire. It is an in-wall rated wire. It is for conductor, and I actually just decided to just run this to every single speaker, even in the instances where I'm running one full wire to the left and one full wire to the right. I could always bi-wire it, although I know people question the value of that. But that way there's no such thing as having too much wire in your walls, especially when it's within a single jacket. And you'll see here the size difference is negligible, right? I mean, maybe a tiny smidgen. So those are the kinds of wires you're going to be using in your pre-wire or in your retrofit. Good luck. If you have any questions, feel free to ping me on the forums at the link below or in the comments. Thanks for watching.